Hello and welcome back to another video. Today we're building a picnic table. So I went to Home Depot and purchased some plywood and I had them cut it for myself. So this one large piece of 8x4 plywood actually turned into 4 different picnic tables. Also at Home Depot I bought wood stain, polyurethane, brushes, gloves, the table legs which are screw-on, along with the hardware that goes with the table legs. So the first step before you stain anything is going to be to sand your wood. This is bare, raw wood. So I started off with the rougher 60-80 grit sandpaper. This is going to remove any of that dirt or debris that was on top of your wood while it was at the store or even while in transport to wherever you are located. It will also get rid of any of the smaller impurities that may be on top of your wood. After using this sandpaper, I did go over with another sandpaper that was a little bit finer, and that's going to do a little bit more detailing with the wood. This is really important because wood stain is not the same as paint. When you paint something, you are coating that surface with paint, whereas with wood stain, the stain is actually going into the wood. So it's actually getting ingrained. So it's really important when you sand your wood and when you stain it to go with the grain. That means whatever direction the lines of the wood are going in, that's the direction that you should be doing every single step. So here we are doing our first coat of wood stain. This is raw wood, so I went with a transparent stain, and that's what I would recommend because there is nothing else coated on it, so you really want that natural wood to show even after you stain it. So go with a nice generous coat of that wood stain, and then after about 30 seconds go ahead and wipe that off with a rag. And then after a few hours, or in my case I waited a whole day, go back over it and do a second coat of wood stain, and your second coat should be much thinner than your first coat of wood stain. So you're not going to need to use nearly as much as you did in your first coat. And this is what my wood looked like after that first coat. So as you saw, I used a brush on that smaller table. On this larger one, I did a different method, which was dipping the rag in the wood stain and then just going over the surface with the rag. So then there's nothing for you to actually wipe up because you're using the rag. I prefer the brush because the rag was a little bit more blotchy and it used way more wood stain than the brush did. So 2 days later I came back and I put the polyurethane on the wood. So I used a waterproofing wood stain, which will allow the wood to be more protected against natural rotting. So if it rains, then our wood is protected. And the polyurethane is what protects our wood from scratches or dents. So any of that normal wear and tear that will occur while your guests are using your furniture. And that's going to be another thin coating. After the tables were done, I went ahead and did the table legs. So I did these by hand. I just held them in my hand while I applied the stain. The exact same way as the tables. Do a generous first staining coat, come back a few hours or the next day, and do a second thinner coat of that wood stain. So here I started from the bottom of the table leg, so that as I continued to move up towards the top, I was able to sit the table leg on the table, hold it by the screw that's on the top, and apply the rest of the stain without disturbing the surfaces that are already coated. So this was the simplest method and it was pretty quick. You just have to be very detailed. I used a 2-inch brush, but for something as detailed as this, I would recommend a 1-inch brush or something a little bit more narrow to make it easier to go in all those small grooves. Once everything was stained and sanded and coated with polyurethane, it's time to actually attach the table legs to our surface. So I spaced all the table legs out 1.5 inches from the edge, and I did this because I was actually going to center the hardware, the corner of the hardware, on the marks. So although I measured it at 1.5 inches, because it's going in the center of the line and not actually to the edge, it's a little bit closer than that 1.5 inch. So probably about, I don't know, less than 1.5 inches from the edge. So I took my drill, made some holes, and then with some screws, I tested it out to see if the screws could actually fit in the holes. And if they didn't, I just went back in with the drill and made the holes a little bit deeper. So now you see I'm screwing that hardware in perfectly on the line. After using the drill, I like to go in and not screw them all the way into the wood because you don't want to apply too much pressure and crack your wood. So I like to go in and finish the screwing by hand with the screwdriver. This is a handy screwdriver pen I've had for years. And the easy part, take your table leg and screw it into the middle. So simple, so easy. When you're loading and unloading your vehicle, if you have a small car, surprisingly, I have a small regular sedan, and all of these tables were able to fit in there flat along with the table legs. Because they are removable, it does not take up much space in your trunk or your back seat. And here is what 2 of those tables look like. So for future reference, I would recommend using painter's tape around the edges. So some of the edges, you can see that wood stain kind of started dripping over the edge. So it gave it kind of an amateur look at the end. So I would recommend using painter's tape. But other than that, everything was really simple, really easy. And I did go around all the edges of the table with stain and polyurethane as well. Hope you enjoyed this video. Until next time, thanks for watching I Heart Black Business.